underlying ideas tomorrow in the afternoon. They also include access to international financial markets because the rationale is low creditworthiness and secure property rights means low investment activities and limited willingness of financial markets to finance current account deficits. So I have all this stuff in the regression. So then they estimate a linear regression where they have the current account balance relative to GDP on the left-hand side for country I at time t. And then they have cyclical and structural / fundamental determinants of the current account here. And they have policy-related determinants of the current account. Will be done in about 15 minutes, I guess, or 20. No, that's... okay, so they have this. Why do we split this up into these two parts? Well, right, you estimate this and you get estimated coefficients from a regression. I mean, you did some econometrics, did you? And I think you did pretty sophisticated econometrics. This is non-sophisticated econometrics. And that's the nice thing about it, right? It's not that you have to be an econometrics rocket scientist. It's a linear regression. End of story. So get those estimated coefficients beta hat and gamma hat. And please note, the reason why these are in bold type is it's not just one coefficient, it's a whole bunch of coefficients. Next thing is you define the desirable level of the policy-related variables. So the IMF sits down and says, well, we think that in Greece, the budget deficit is too large, should be lower. In Germany, the budget deficit is too small, should be, I mean, the German government should spend more money. In country X, health spending is too high. In country Z, health spending is too low. And there's kind of policy variables that the government can affect. The third step is to compute current account norms and current account gaps. Now let me show you how that's done step by step. So this is the output of the IMF's EBA regression. And this is what we're going to do tomorrow, because the IMF is kind enough to provide you can download it with a data set, and actually this data do file. So you just have to, you have to understand what they're doing. You can run the do file, and you get this table, right? So it's not black box. It's just, this is plain to see. So they have fiscal policy in here, which is the fiscal surplus, the budget surplus relative to GDP. And you see that it has a positive effect. Now this is super cool because it's between 0 and 1. Ricardian equivalence would mean the coefficient is 0, as we've shown. Complete non-Ricardian behavior would mean the coefficient is 1, with the current account and the budget balance moving in sync. Now, what we see is the coefficient is somewhere in between. So people are somewhat Ricardian, but they're not completely Ricardian. Then you have all those demographic variables in here. You have population growth, you have the old age dependency ratio, you have the share of prime age savers, you have life expectancy interacted with the OAD. Demographic variables affecting the current account balance. That's exactly what we're talking about this morning. Now, let me use this whiteboard to show you what is done. So So the current account, the estimated current account balance is this thing, prime, plus gamma hat prime ZIT. Now, the additional thing that the IMF does, it adds the desirable values So this is just adding something and subtracting it in the next step. Now, what is this good for? Well, this is good for saying this is what you would expect in terms of current account if the policy variables were at their desirable levels. This is the deviation from the actual policy variables from their desirable levels. Now, IMF mission members come to Germany, they come to Vietnam, they come to Brazil, they come to all these countries and say, look, let's discuss your policy variables, your fiscal balance, your ... We have an idea about where these variables should be. And then, of course, usually national officials says, oh, we have other ideas. And then there's a bit of, arguing and haggling. But by the end of the day, this is what's meant by ZIT star. So I keep putting my stuff somewhere where I don't find it. Where did I put the laser pointer? Ah, here it is. So this is the predicted level of the current account. This is the deviation of policy variables from the desirable policy levels, from the so-called policy gap. And by the end of the day, you get the current account balance that you explain, which is just the predicted value plus the residual, right? Residual is the difference between what you observe and what you predict. Now, this is the regression residual. Now, this is what is called the current account norm. This is the total current account gap. The total current account gap has two components. The first component is the deviation due to this policy gap. The second component is the residual, where you say, well, there's something that we observe in the data that our model cannot explain, right? And that's the thing. That's what the IMF does. The IMF looks at countries' current account balances and compares the observed current account to the current account norm and says if there's a deviation, there's a current account gap, and the current account gap has two origins, the policy gap and the regression residual. Now here you see this is taken from the External Stability Report 2024, right? You see that countries like Switzerland, Korea, Netherlands, Japan, Italy, all the way down to India, and you see this is the EBA current account norm, right? So by and large, the external balance analysis suggests that Switzerland should have a very high current account surplus. It says that Korea should have a really high current account surplus. It says that it's not surprising that India has a current account deficit. And the contributions are, for example, the IMF says Switzerland should have a current account surplus because Switzerland has this high net foreign assets. Also, demographics of Switzerland contribute to the high net foreign assets. Korea is expected to have a high current account surplus, first and foremost because of its demographic component. I'm currently reading an article in the New Yorker magazine about, the title of the article is called, or the title is The End of Children. And it reports something that is going on in the world on a massive scale, namely decreasing population growth. And if you're looking for an example, then look at Korea. Korea has, and the one sad part of the article, the author says it's easier to find in Korea, in Seoul, a shop where you can buy strollers for dogs than strollers for kids. Because children, there's primary schools are deserted. So this is the baby bust in Korea, right? And the baby bust means you have fewer children, so you're saving more. The IMF doesn't say that the baby bust is a good thing, but the IMF says given the evolution of the Korean population, that is what we would expect. Germany should have, you see, Germany, the IMF says that the German current account balance should be somewhere at 2.7. Due to its Germany's high net foreign assets is another word for net international investment position due to demographics, due to other fundamentals. But the IMF keeps insisting that Germany should spend more money, the German government should spend more money. So here's a policy gap. Now German government has decided to do so. I hope that IMF will be happy with it. Good. Now, interestingly, for the years 2020 through 2022, the IMF systematically accounted for COVID-19 factors when computing current account norms. Now, in the External Stability Report 2024, those COVID-19 factors do not longer enter the computation of current account norms. But you had, I mean, in those years 2020, 2021, and 2022, you did have to account for the fact that a country like Thailand was running a huge current account deficit because tourism was breaking down. Okay? And you had to account for the fact that some countries were benefiting big